So that way anyone who missed this webinar could view it later. I also have a few housekeeping items that we'll go over. So we want to make sure that your Zoom is working properly. So in order to change your audio controls, you can find those on the left-hand bottom corner of your screen if you're on desktop. You could view your viewing controls on the right-hand side, and then communication controls, which I'll go over in a second, at the bottom. If you're joining from a phone or a tablet, you'll see that your audio controls are up top and your communication controls are on the bottom here. So we have chat disabled, and in order for you to ask a question, which we invite, we would love to hear your questions today. Please be sure to use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. And the way that'll work is you can type in your question and I'll go ahead and field the questions throughout the presentation. We'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to ask your questions. And if we don't get to your question for some reason, we'll make sure to follow up with you afterwards. So here we go. Are we in a buyer's market? A lot has changed in the last few months, and I'm sure a lot of you have some burning questions to ask our experts here today. So here with us today are Rashida Rencher and Kevin Skipper. So I'm going to go ahead and let Rashida start and introduce herself. Oh, Rashida, you're muted.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Does everybody hear me? Hi, thank you so much for joining today. My name is Rashida Rencher. I'm a Bay Area native and have been in real estate for the last 12 years. I've worked for big banks and I've worked for SF Fire Credit Union for the last 7.5 years. I love the credit union because I'm able to develop close relationships with our members, helping them throughout the home loan process, anywhere from purchasing to refinancing and even giving help where lines of credit might be needed. I'm passionate about real estate. You can really ask anyone. I love what I do, and I'm excited about the opportunity to bring you this information about the importance of getting pre-approved, the home buying process, and talk about some recent changes we are seeing in the current real estate market.
Awesome. Thanks, Rashida, and thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you.
All right. And then we also have Kevin Skipper with us. So Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. It's great to be here. Yeah, this is my 20th year in the business. I really started out from the standpoint of I just wanted to make money and, sell as many houses as I can, become a top producer, blah, 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 blah. And just through the course of my evolution in the work, really have embraced the idea that we as real estate professionals are truly customer advocates. So sometimes we have to bring information that's not, fun, but we're always here. The point is we're here to help educate and help move you along the path to home ownership. So yeah, glad to be here and let's do it. Hope we can have some fun.
Awesome. And speaking of fun, I forgot to mention at the top of the webinar that we will be holding an opportunity drawing for those who attended today. So we'll be giving away a $50 Visa gift card to one of the attendees. So we'll be announcing that after the webinar via email. So be sure to check your email. So that'll be exciting. All right. But on to some of the topics today. So before we get into the conversation, we want to hear a little bit about those of you who are attending today. So we have a couple survey questions. The first one that we're going to ask is, are you currently pre-approved for a home loan? So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll and you can fill in your answer. So I'll give you a little bit to do that. All right, so it looks like we have a majority. All right, so hopefully you're seeing the results, but it looks like the majority of you have answered no, you're not pre-approved currently, or you were pre-approved, but it's expired. And then we have one person say that they are currently pre-approved. So that's good to know. Thank you for answering that. All right, so the main topic that we're going to be covering today is the change in the market and thinking about a buyer's market versus a seller's market and what are some of the trends that favor each of those groups. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about first is, you know, as a buyer, the things that make you an attractive buyer to sellers and sellers agents like Kevin. So since we're going to be talking a lot about getting pre-approved, we thought we'd go over what that is for those of you who might not be familiar. So Rashida, can you talk a little bit about what it takes to get pre-approved? You're on mute again, sorry.
Sorry, thank you. You know, buying a home is probably one of the biggest purchases in one's lifetime. It can be daunting and overwhelming. However, having a knowledgeable team who takes the time and effort and energy to properly review your individual situation is a really important step in the process and can help relieve some of the anxiety around home buying. A pre-approval can give you the confidence and focus and to focus on the properties that you can really afford, because we all know what's out there. We love looking at what, you know, we may or may not be able to afford. So it really helps focus your efforts. In the home loan pre-approval process, we basically, you know, look at three essential things. We're looking at your credit, which is your credit history of how you repay debts on time. We're looking at your assets, which is your down payment and your reserves. You've been able to save money. And then your ability to repay. So what that means is basically you have the income, you have you know, a job or your own business that can then repay the loan that you're going to take in the pre-approval. So those are the three main things that we look for in a pre-approval.
Wonderful. All right. So can you talk about some of the things that can hurt your pre-approval or your ability to get into a home after you've been pre-approved, or maybe even during the process?
Absolutely. You know, especially in our market in the Bay Area, the purpose and the objective is to maximize your purchasing power. So in order to do that, we really need to stay focused on what your goals are. So, you know, buying things like a car or furniture or even co-signing on a loan can really hurt your ability to maximize your purchasing power. So really staying focused, trying to keep your debts low, your income high, making sure you're making your payments on time are really key components to, you know, venturing into the home buying process.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I feel like once, you know, because you just got pre-approved, I wonder if there are maybe, you know, you're feeling good about your credit score, you're seeing these other offers on get an auto loan, get this new credit card. And I'm sure that's very tempting when thinking about, oh, maybe you're moving to a more, I don't know, rural area where you need like a truck or like an SUV or something, and you know, thinking about the moving process. I'm sure, yeah, this is very tempting. So this is great to know.
Yeah, it can be very tempting. You know, everybody's situation is different. So I encourage you to reach out to me in case you have any of those types of questions before you make those large purchases.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, we have another survey question already. So we're going to go ahead and launch that. And this is a two-parter. So the first part is, again, we want to learn a little bit more about the attendees today. if you're looking for a home right now, which we assume you are, how soon are you looking to get into a home? And then the second part is, if you've been in the market for a home, how long have you been looking? So I'm going to go ahead and launch that right now. So I'll give everyone a moment to submit their answers. Okay, I see more answers rolling in. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share. Okay, so it looks like a majority are looking to get into a home in the next 6 months to a year, which I think, is a nice chunk of time to give you time to get pre-approved if you're not, and to, find an agent and start looking. And then the second question here, how long have you been in the market for a home? And if so, how long? So the majority are saying about 3 to 6 months, but then we have an attendee who said 1 to 2 years, which I know the housing market has been a little intense. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So thank you everyone for submitting your answers. So over the last few months, the rates have been rising, or at least, we've seen the prime rate go up, and that's affecting, other rates in the market. So that's one factor, but what are maybe some of the overall challenges that you're seeing, that we've seen in the past 5 years, but then what's happening now? So Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen in the last 5 years, and then what's changed?
Sure. Everyone, if you've been looking at, I saw the survey results, and if you've been looking in the past 3 to 6 months, that was a period of time, of course, within the past 5 years, but it was a period of time where there was a lot of competition. There was a lot of overbidding. There were tons of multiple offers, and very limited inventory. So it just created again, we have these real estate storms here. It created another one of these real estate storms where everyone was in a frenzy to buy a house. And what we're seeing now, because of the conversations about the economy and rising rates, we're seeing fewer offers. There are more homes on the market, and there's more negotiating power for the buyers, especially those who are well qualified, who've gained a pre-approval. It's really important.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess talking about like negotiating power, going back to the pre-approval portion, and how the market has changed. The rates have gone up, but does that mean that, there aren't a lot of options for buyers? Or Rashida, can you talk a little bit about, how buyers might think about, which loans might work for them in this market?
Absolutely. With all of the changes that we're seeing, it's really the perfect opportunity to really understand the different options that are available in terms of loans and products. There are, obviously we've seen the 30-year fix go up significantly. So it's really important to kind of understand what other options there are. It's really a key component into the home buying process. I would say, typically people refinance within a 7 to 10 year period, and people do not stay in the same loan for 30 years. So looking at some of the other options, such as our adjustable rate mortgages, really could help maximize your affordability, can increase what you can afford, and kind of just give you some other options, just so that again, you have some different options in this market. People refinance for various reasons, whether you're going to take out home improvement loan, or you're going to refinance because rates have dropped, or you're going to consolidate debt that you've accumulated over the years. There's just different reasons. So we have some great competitive rates and programs that could really be appealing to some of you. So reach out to me and we can see what will work for you.
Awesome, thank you. All right. So, we've talked about, what we've seen in the last 5 years, how the market is changing currently. And that's focused on, I guess the competition and the pricing and all of that. But Kevin, so you're a seller's agent. So you represent the seller. So the buyer's agent will, go to you with the offer. And I think in a market like this changing market, even in the previous market we were in, it's really interesting to understand how a buyer could stand out. So what are some of the ways that an offer or a buyer would stand out to you?
Well, the ways that they stand out really start with their lender. It really starts with their pre-approval. And reputation is great. So, amongst agents as well as amongst loan professionals, mortgage professionals. So reputation is everything. So if you have those pieces of your, in your toolbox, right? Because your pre-approval is very much a very strong tool. So having that together, first of all, is really important. And the responsiveness of the mortgage professional, because once your offer comes in, as a listing agent, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call Rashida. And I'm going to talk to Rashida about you as the borrower, you as the buyer, and given the market shifts of late, that's what we're talking about, the undercurrent here. Are you prepared? Have you prepared for those market shifts? Have you actually openly discussed that with your mortgage professional? I'll ask those kinds of questions. So it's important to know. Also, to just understanding the market, having a knowledge of the market. We have so much access to information, online about homes and what's out there. That information is really, really helpful, because in this market, it takes 6 months to a year, or it has taken 6 months to a year to actually even get up to speed as to why does this even make sense? This is crazy. My parents back in Delaware don't understand what we're talking about. No one does. And again, being properly aligned is important. And lastly, having the confidence that the mortgage professional can close the loan on time. That's key. Lots of stuff.
I bet. And it's interesting because for those of you who have attended our previous webinars, we've talked a lot about how it's important to work with a realtor who knows your local market, because a lot of times people might end up working with, their uncle's friend, their parents really want them to use, or their neighbor who just became a realtor. And, so it sounds like it's also really important to work with a lender that's reputable, and that, that might also be local, like someone that you would have heard of before, and not just, someone's uncle in another state, although we love supporting family. So, but it looks like we just got a question. So, and it's relevant to this section, so I'll go ahead and ask it. But is it common for an agent to represent both the seller and the buyer? Is it something to be wary about? And how do I know if they have my best interest?
What an excellent question. I would say no, it is not common for agents in this market to represent both buyer and seller. What I have seen, right? What I've seen through my career is in these moments of market shift, there's more of that happens. So I would say this, not be leery of that, but be open to having a conversation and asking questions about it. Because I trust that my colleagues out there can handle that. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, well, great question. Feel free to ask more questions using the Q&A button. So we talked a little bit about you know, some of the ways to be an attractive buyer, you know, and stand out in, you know, a group of buyers. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about the process of making an attractive offer?
Yes, definitely. Again, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of what is going to be best for my seller. What is going to be the best situation here? So your agent, the buyer's agent, the one that's representing you, it's important for them to be clear about where you are as far as your buying power is concerned. It is important, while Rashida will not provide me with personal information about your financial situation, what she will do is she will provide information about guidelines for moving forward. So it kind of brings me to this. You know, you almost have to be ready to have a loan a loan professional who's going to challenge you and is really going to go to battle with you about your goal and your dream, because ultimately they're going to go to battle for you when it comes time to actually get this deal underwritten and getting the deal closed for you. So it's important to ask questions and challenge your mortgage professional as well, because ultimately I'm going to do what the mortgage professional says.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I have a quick follow-up question on that note. So in previous, you know, webinars, we had a realtor on who you know, was a buyer's agent, and they would recommend things like shooting a quick video and telling your story. So you were saying that you typically don't get personal information about people, but if someone writes like a letter or a bio about themselves, is that something that you typically look at, or how often do you see something like that?
You know, I think it varies. It varies, you know, from situation to situation. I have seen lots of videos and letters and pictures and things in a hyperactive marketplace. When you're actually receiving 35 offers, you just don't have the time to go through that, and you have to be able to assess each offer equally and fairly without creating bias. So that's something that's really important in the process, is to avoid the situations where people can be either discriminated against or at least be pigeonholed because, you know, they're typecasting you based on your video. So we're always having to be careful about, you know, fair housing, you know, that and giving fair and equal opportunity as well is really important. And sometimes these presentations can go over. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, cool, thanks.
So yeah, back to your offer being attractive. Get skin in the game. 3%. Get that in your mind. Your earnest money deposit, 3%. It says that you are committed and that you are less likely to walk away from this deal. And that's so very important. So as a seller's agent, and I'm looking at that, it's like, oh, there's a committed buyer here. Yes, let's keep moving towards them. Yeah. Again, back to the strength of the file, the reputation of the lender, the ability to close, your agent being able to present you in the best light as well, and from a position of strength. And also just clean offers. No, not lots and lots of contingencies and lots of twists and turns and addendums. No, just cleanliness. Yeah, that's where we want it to be. I hope that's clear. If somebody wants me to clarify what I mean by that, I'm happy to. But yeah, I hope that's clear.
Yeah, it sounds like it's preferred to be very organized because there's so much information needed that you want just an organized package or organized offer.
Absolutely.
All right. So you did mention contingencies just now, and I wonder if if you can speak to these a little bit, and then I have some follow-up questions for Rashida as well. But yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about maybe what contingencies are and why they're important to the process.
Well, contingencies are deadlines, and they're important deadlines in your contract, because this is how we move step by step through the process and establish a timing for that. So the appraisal, for example, that there's a period of time where that needs to happen, 7 to 10 days, maybe 14 days, depending on the circumstances and how busy everyone is out there. In the magical place of appraisals, that's a magical place. Your loan approval as well, just getting that through the process. What is the time framing on that? 21 days, 30 days, takes about that long. And then there are inspections, and that's really your due diligence. And this is what's important about your offer, is that you're setting realistic deadlines for yourself that can be met, and that the seller can be confident that you have a plan. This is just you telling the seller, we have a plan for getting these things done. So I hope that helps. It's all confusing. Real estate is confusing. That's why you have professionals, okay?
And that's why we have webinars. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And then Rashida, can you speak to contingencies from a lender's perspective and how they play a role in the process for us?
Absolutely. With the change in the market that we're seeing, we do see offers being written with appraisal contingency, with loan contingencies, with inspection contingencies. And this really helps the buyer understand what they're getting into, what this house has, what it needs, and really kind of lays the groundwork for some negotiations. Because if the inspections come in and there's things that you weren't expecting, that could be grounds to renegotiate pricing. That could be, negotiating buyers' credits, sellers crediting the buyer for some of the work that might need to be done. If the appraisal doesn't come in at purchase price, this then also becomes groundwork for your agent to go back to renegotiate some of the terms. Loan, generally we don't see any issues on the loan side, because I am very diligent in issuing my pre-approvals. So, we shouldn't really see many issues with the loan itself. It's usually going to kind of come around versus, about the appraisal and, other things that might come up. If you're doing like a roof inspection or, a foundation inspection, and you're just not really happy with what comes back, then you kind of have, you have the ability to step away. That's why those contingencies are in place. Yeah.
May I add something to that?
Yep.
Yeah, and this is why really embracing the fact that once you're in contract, the negotiation does not end there simply because you're in contract. So what we have been seeing is we've been seeing offers that were being written where the contingencies were removed for appraisal, for the loan, and even inspections. That type of frenzy creates can create a lot of pain, right? So where we are in the market, just back to why this is an important time in the market, we're returning to an opportunity to negotiate, and even negotiate while we're in contract. So getting into contract should be your number one goal as a buyer. Number one.
And getting into contract means having your offer accepted. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. And actually on that, what we're talking about right now, we have a question that just came in, which is, because of the increasing interest rates, are we now in a buyer's market in the Bay Area? So did you guys want to take that question? Rashida, do you want to go for it?
I'll start with that.
Okay.
There's a lot of different components to the change in the market. Yes, the interest rates increasing has contributed. However, just kind of how we talked about in the very beginning, one of the reasons why we were really in a seller's market is because there was very low inventory, and so people were frantically trying to get what little houses were available. Rates were really low, so money was cheap. So people were kind of, I would also say, the rise of COVID kind of also added to this frenzy of people just wanting their own house, wanting to get out of condos, needing more space because they're working from home or whatever the case may be. However, with what we're seeing now, the rise in rates, but we also see a rise in inventory. So there's a lot more people selling their houses right now. But with the rise of interest rates and just, kind of what's going on with the economy in Russia and the markets, people are unsure what's happening. So that you don't see the same amount of frenzy. There's a lot more to choose from. The buyers are being they're being a little bit more cautious. So again, we're not seeing numerous offers well over listing price. We're seeing more contingencies on the offers. And it's hard to say whether we're in a buyer's market per se. I think it's still a challenge to get into contract, but it's definitely softening from what we've seen in the past. It really is could create a unique opportunity for buyers to kind of slip in. We don't know how long this is going to last. I know at the Bay Area has been, a point of real estate, gold mine for some time. So I definitely would see this as an opportunity for buyers to kind of step in if they're really eager to be and to get a purchase and to get into a house. Now is a good time. I don't know if that really answered your question. I hope it did, but let me know if you need some clarification.
I think the answer is likely yes, but it's still difficult to find a home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still the Bay Area.
Yes, exactly.
There's no way around that. There's only so much dirt. And we have ocean, we have the Bay, we have East Bay Regional Parks, and reserve space that we're not utilizing. So we're in this place where we have to be patient if we want to buy. If you want to buy, you have to be patient and learn how to run in the margins. And right now is one of those opportunities to run in the margins and find opportunities. I said opportunities twice in the same sentence, so I wanted to offer an apology for that. But we're in this I believe that we're in a special time. I was speaking with one of my colleagues who I work with a lot, another listing agent, and he says, "Wow, we're having to have some tough conversations with our sellers about what needs to happen to actually get the house sold. And those who are waiting to put their homes in the market, the conversation now is you can't really look to what was happening 6 months ago and expect that frenzy is going to drive the prices up. It's not because of real estate professionals that the prices go up. I'm going to defend my profession. It's not because of us. It's because of demand. It's because of demand, and there's just no way around it when the demand is high and the inventory is low. And that's changing a bit now, which changes your leverage as a buyer.
And just to kind of circle back around to the question in terms of raising rates, I mean, it definitely has contributed because people can afford less. Money is much more expensive than it was 6 months or even a year ago. So, you know, things have to adjust, right? So, you know, a lot of people put on their house on the market thinking that they're going to get $200,000 and $300,000 over list price, and they've been sorely disappointed. You know, things are definitely staying on the market longer. You know, I have many more files that are coming back with credits and that we hadn't seen in the last 2 years. So it's definitely changing.
Cool. Well, great question. Thanks for asking that. All right. And so, so we just wanted to share that, you know, all of these questions have been really amazing. And I know that, you know, first-time home buyers or even second or third-time home buyers might have questions. And so we do have a lot of resources on our website if you navigate to the home loans section. And again, we'll be sending an email out after this webinar with some resources, but you can always also reach out to our real estate team. You know, Rashida and Jeff are a part of that team. And then we'll also be sending out Kevin's information so you can reach out to him if you have questions. So now we're going to head into the Q&A section of the webinar. So I encourage you to continue asking questions, but we do have some questions here that were asked in advance. But before we dive into those, we have a question for the attendees who have joined us today. And feel free to just chat this into the Q&A button. But how engaged are you with your realtor? We're just curious to know if you are working with a realtor, you know, maybe how often you engage with them. Do you feel comfortable with them? We're just curious in general. We thought we'd ask that question. But one of the questions that we'd like to ask our panelists today is, so we kind of touched upon this a little bit in one of the previous slides, but how involved is the lender in things like property inspections? So Rashida, that's probably a question you can take.
So again, property inspections are really important for the buyer. You should know what you're getting into. You should know, you know, what kind of roof you have, you know, pest inspection, foundation inspection. You know, again, this is one of the largest purchases that you will make. So you want to know what kind of thing you're getting into. This is really going to be something that you work with your realtor. In terms of lending, it's not a requirement that we get any documentation regarding your inspections. Unless it becomes apparent on the appraisal. So that's kind of, you know, a slippery slope, but generally speaking, that's going to be something that you discuss with your realtor.
Got it. And then Kevin, do you have any insights on this one? Like, are you involved in the inspection portion at all, at like representing the seller?
Representing the seller, and back to what you can expect as a buyer in most cases from sellers, right? You know, right now is that sellers are conducting inspections and presenting those inspections as part of the disclosures, the disclosure package. So that's helpful. And it's in the where we are now. Oh, excuse me, where we were recently is like these are my disclosure. These are the inspections. Take them and remove your contingencies. That had been the expectation. because that is no longer the expectation. Accept the inspections and review the inspections. I may be going too far here, but I think it's important. The point I'm trying to make here is that review the inspections, but also have you pay for your own, invest in your own inspections. Because remember, you have your inspection period, or investigation period, where if you uncover information that wasn't shared in the previous disclosures that the seller provided, you now have a point of negotiation. There may be room to actually ask for some help here, understanding that, hey, this is what's happening, and there's a problem here. Going back to something else that Rashida said earlier about credits and seeing files coming through with more credits from sellers. This may be surprising for people, especially first time around, is that sellers will help you buy their house. Sometimes you just have to ask.
Yeah, some examples of that might be probably like a water heater, maybe roofing, maybe, yeah, things like that.
All of those things.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way, any of those things. Any of those,
Perfect.
yes.
Thank you. Well, we just got another question that's related to this topic, so I'll go ahead and ask it now. What happens if I waive appraisal contingency and the home appraises for less than the offer? So that sounds like a Rashida question. Did you want to take that one?
Sure. It can also be a two-part question, but you know, if you've waived the appraisal contingency and it comes back lower, you might have to come in with more money. Meaning that if you're putting a significant down payment, I might just be able to restructure the loan, but you might not be able to buy the house for the appraised value. Meaning that because you've waived the contingency, it means that you still might be tied to that original purchase price, which means that I either have to restructure the loan or you have to come in with the difference. That's why it's important to have those contingencies, especially if you're putting, 5% down, 10% down, something where it makes it more difficult for me to restructure the loan with the money that you already have.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It goes back to having this discipline surrounding what your buying power really is. Because if you were coming in at some loan programs as low as 3.5% for down payment. So if you're coming in with this minimal amount for a down payment, waiving your appraisal actually puts you in jeopardy. It puts you in jeopardy. So if you have more in the way of down payment, there's less jeopardy there. I would advise you not to waive your appraisal contingency unless you know something that the rest of us don't know, and that means you have to share. But
that usually means that you're coming in with like 30 or 40,000, 40% down, which means that, I have a little bit of wiggle room. So, or you have a lot more assets than your original offer is, so that you could actually come in with the difference.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect. I hope that made sense to the person who asked it. It makes sense to me. But yeah, if there are any follow-up questions, please let us know. But then the next question we have here is, this is an interesting one. Will my pre-approval be applicable in other states?
We are a local lender, so we only do California, but we do all of California. So, if you're interested in getting pre-approved for a loan outside, I would start with your local credit union in that area. And I do have some out-of-state references for you should you need them, but I only do California.
Cool. Thank you.
Also,
then, go
listing
ahead.
agents love local banks. Because the local bank knows the market. It's
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. Local bank.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
We love that. Okay. All right. So we touched upon this in a previous slide, but maybe we could talk a little bit more about it. But with the rising rate environment, does SF Fire Credit Union offer competitive rates?
We do. We do a rate survey every day. So we know that we do offer competitive rates.
Jeff, did you have anything to add to that? Jeff is on our real estate sales team as well.
I think Rashida summed it up very, very well. We position ourselves to be extremely competitive among the local competitors, and so we do a rate survey every morning, and we strive to be in the top third of those every day.
Awesome. All right. Well, this last question we have here, but feel free to ask more questions using the Q&A button, is when reviewing offers and disclosures, what might be a red flag? This sounds like a fun question. Kevin, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, why not? So I'm taking this question as if I'm talking to a buyer that I'm representing, and they're reviewing disclosures for the sake of this particular conversation. Red flags. Red flags and disclosures for me really are about holes in the information. If most home inspections, for example, they give narratives about what they're viewing and what they're inspecting. If you look at an inspection and it's, nothing to note, or, over and over and over again, or not applicable, or there's very little written information, that's a red flag. That is a red flag. I think also two red flags from disclosures are, again, the incompleteness of them, right? So you have a home inspection, but there's no roof. There's no covering of no one's looked at the roof. Right? that type of thing. Age of appliances is a big deal, especially furnaces and water heaters. Just the idea that what I'm looking at doesn't line up with what's on this paper. And that's really the job of the agent who's representing the buyer, and you as the buyer to really dig in there. Really dig in. Yeah. Those are just things that come to mind.
Cool. All right, that's super helpful. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but of course, we'll be sending out that email. So, attendees can reach out to our real estate team or to our panelists today. We have their contact information listed here. We'll also have it listed in the email. But I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us today. I feel like we've learned so much about the current market and, things to know, red flags. We learned a little bit more about pre-approvals, how to make a compelling offer. And I want to thank all of our attendees for taking time to join us this evening. So again, thank you everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.